Developing pieces is almost always more important than grabbing pawns, even for world champions. Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with number 7 in the series Quick Chess Victories. Last time we looked at some car crashes in the Budapest Gambit, and that is of course a d2, d4 opening. And one of the most faithful supporters of the Chess to Impress channel, Jack Waring. Jack, I hope I pronounced your last name properly this time. He said he's an e2, e4 player, and I promised him that the next installment of this series would be about e4. We're going to look at what can go wrong in the Danish Gambit. What can go wrong for black, that is. White starts with e4, e5, and then d4. That's a pawn sacrifice because after e takes d4, white plays c3. We're following a correspondence game played in 1912 between Svensson and Alderson. Black took on c3, and now bishop c4, which is sacrificing a second pawn, if black takes on b2. Let's see what happened in Essery against Warren, also in 1912. Instead of c takes b2, black played d6. He does not want to give white too much of an advantage in development. In that game, white took on c3, knight f6, knight f3, bishop g4, white castled, the knight got developed, and bishop g5. Here a move like bishop e7 is perfectly fine, but black made a mistake in that Essery-Warren game. He played knight c6 to e5, and that move deserves a question mark. Because that knight can be taken. Yes, a very spectacular queen sacrifice, and we see a nice variation of Legal's mate. If you take with the pawn, then there is queen b3, and white crashes through on f7 or on b7. And if you take the queen instead, then we see Legal's mate. Bishop takes, king e7 only move, and checkmate with the minor pieces. If you haven't seen this before, this is called Legal's mate. Very spectacular. A queen sacrifice and mate with the 4 minor pieces. They all play a role in the checkmate variation. Okay, back to our game. Let's go from the start. e4, e5, d4, e takes, c3, d takes, bishop c4, sacrificing a second pawn. And in the Svensson-Alderson game, black indeed took on b2. Bishop takes b2. It's clear what white has for the 2 pawns. Beautiful bishops, great diagonals, and an advantage in development. Black has nothing developed, has only played with the e-pawn, which turned out to be a b-pawn in the end. Here knight f6 was played by Alderson, but we have another game to look at, in which queen g5 was played, a weird move. Yes, you want to develop your pieces, but not the queen first. And it was played by nobody less than Emanuel Lasker in a blitz game in Newcastle in England in 1892. His opponent was Henry Bird. What happened in that game? Knight f3, kicking the queen, and the queen took on g2, taking a third pawn. It was 1892, Emanuel Lasker was not world champion yet. He would become world champion 2 years later by beating Wilhelm Steinitz. But he is very greedy in this blitz game. And he forgets that developing pieces is almost always more important than grabbing pawns, even for world champions. Let's see what Bird did. He played rook g1, hitting the queen, an in-between check, and the king went to e2. That's actually the best move in the position. Surprising move, nice move from Bird. The queen is still hanging, it went to h3, and now bishop takes f7 check. There we see that same sacrifice on f7 as we saw in the previous game. You cannot take the bishop because then there is knight g5 check, and we have a nice family fork. King e8, and the queen is gone. White wins. So after bishop takes f7 check, Lasker saw he couldn't take. He played king d8, and Bird took on g7, and there is already a rook hanging in the corner. Knight e7 and knight g5, and now black has to give the queen. He has to keep the e6 square protected. Lasker did not take this game very seriously. He played queen h4 and then we had this very nice checkmate. A very nice picture. The d-pawn is pinned and the bishop on f7 takes the e8 square away. Not a very serious game, but still a crushing loss from Emanuel Lasker. Let's go back to our main game, which is Svensson Alderson. Let's go through the moves again, just to see what a Danish Gambit is. Sacrificing 2 pawns. Bishop takes, and we just saw that queen g5, very strange move from Lasker. Knight f6 was played in that correspondence game by Alderson. Knight c3, and here d5 is a good move according to FIDE master Graham Burgess, who analyzed this game. Knight c6 was played by Alderson instead. Knight f3, and again d5 is good, but knight a5 was played, hitting the bishop. And there we see it again. So this is a move that you really have to keep an eye on when your opponent plays the Danish Gambit, because bishop takes f7 check was played in this game as well. King takes and e5, hitting the knight, and black played knight c4, counter-attacking the bishop on b2, which is unprotected. White took on f6, and now knight takes b2 is a blunder because of queen d5 check, and if you go to f6, then there is queen g5 check, and that wins the queen because of the skewer. The king cannot move to a square where it protects the queen. King f7, and the queen is lost. So let's go back. Knight takes b2 is not a good move because of queen d5 check. We just saw king takes f6. That doesn't work, but king e8 doesn't work either because of f7 check, king e7, and white can castle. This is not playable for black, which is easy to see if you look at the board. After e takes f6, the move that Graham Burgess recommends is queen takes f6. And this is playable. The game goes on. In the game after e takes f6, black played another bad move. He played queen e8 check. The king stepped aside, and now black took on b2. But he had missed something, because after queen d5 check, he resigned. It was a correspondence game, and black saw here that he's lost. You cannot interpose the queen because of knight g5 check, picking up that queen because of the fork. And if you instead play king takes f6, then there is rook e1 with a winning attack. Knight e4 is coming. The engine already wants to sacrifice the queen with queen takes e1. That's how bad things are for black. So after queen d5 check, black resigned. And we saw 3 examples of what can go wrong for black when white plays the Danish Gambit. It's a very dangerous opening, so you should know your stuff if you accept the Gambit as black. Especially that bishop takes f7 check move is always a tactical motif. It's important for black to keep a good eye on that one. The goal of this series is not to give an extensive overview of a line or a gambit. It's really just to show you what can go wrong, give you a flavor of the opening, and entertain you with some quick wins. I hope you are enjoying the series. Please let me know in the comments what you think of it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you like the video, then please share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.